this is Kathleen Francesca, and welcome to the second episode of This Is Me. I'd like to introduce my wonderful guests. I got Mr. Vince Rodriguez III and Don Michael Mendoza. So I'm just going to kind of allow them to talk about themselves, and we'll get things going.
Sure. Hi, I'm Vincent Rodriguez III, and I'm a professional actor, singer, dancer here in Hollywood, California. I met Frankie through a dance lesson.
Yes.
I've been teaching since I graduated from college in 2003, and I spent 11 years in New York City after that, pursuing a career on Broadway, doing national tours, doing everything but Broadway. I was in the original cast of Irving Berlin's White Christmas, Disney's Hunchback of Notre Dame, and I don't know, serendipitously booked the role of Josh Chan in Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. So when Hollywood called, I moved here, and since then I've been doing TV, film, voiceover. So I did 2 Hallmark movies in the last 2 years. I'm the voice of Raiden in Mortal Kombat and the voice of the Dune video game. I have a lot of history with that too. So it's been a very busy 7 years here in LA, and I'm looking forward to what's ahead, and I'm grateful to be here.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for having me and us here. And but hey, I'm Don Mike Mendoza, and I am a actor and journalist turned producer. I was an actor that created a company called Latino Productions, which was a cabaret series started in Washington, D.C. in 2012 that grew over the last 13 years and now is located in 7 U.S. cities and Manila. And so that, and then opened my own production company called DMH Mendoza Productions. And so I produce live theater off-Broadway. My biggest credit so far in my career has been Here Lies Love on Broadway in 2023. And through that is how I met Vince here, and we became friends and now business partners, and I'm his manager in the Philippines, and interim manager in the States, and COO of his production company. And that's how I met you. I met Frankie because of this relationship.
You know, it's really interesting because you and I have a lot of great conversation between, doing Footloose.
Oh yeah, a lot of dancing, a lot of Footloose the last few months.
And some of the inspiration that I've gotten from our conversation is basically why I decided to, have the discussion about balancing culture between the Filipino and the American culture, right? We've had some really deep conversations, and you and I have some deep conversations too. And it's interesting because, we all came from a different Filipino-American culture, but at the end of it all, there's a lot of connections through our, our experiences. So I just kind of wanted to have an open discussion and talk about, Filipino versus American culture and our journey and what got us here and how our culture played a part on our success.
Oh, wow.
I know it's a lot.
I don't think it's a lot. I just think it's beautiful to think of those things.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how often we in the entertainment industry or in entrepreneurship, where we really think back in the past, not as a regret or as a, I wish I had that dream or I could pursue that dream, but more like that really helped shepherd me into where I am. And I include the bad things or the uncomfortable things. I don't think I'd be who I am today if I didn't have the challenges at home, being a kid who stuttered till kindergarten or who got held back in the first grade, 2 grades, so they wanted to put me back in kindergarten instead of 2nd grade. There's a lot of things like that were pivotal for me. And a lot of things changed over time, especially with my dad, who wasn't very supportive of my wanting to be an actor or an entertainer. He wanted me to be a businessman and take over his business. So I just remember feeling not seen, not really understood, and I felt like I needed more resource, but I didn't know how to get it.
Yeah.
And I know that my family loved me so much, and they gave me so much, and they're always with me, especially my dad. He's been gone for over a decade now, but he's in my heart, in my mind. I think about him every morning in my mantras, and I don't think I changed the past, because I think it built my character and created resilience in me, and that's how I've been able to show up in the jobs and the opportunities that I've had, including teaching you dance and being a coach and kind of a mentor and friend to you, because I believe in that kind of connection and communication, especially in our Filipino culture, which doesn't always support that level of vulnerability and communication.
I think in some ways, because, our culture, it's not like, when you look at the Filipino culture, we're not as vocal as how we feel towards each other, right? Like, growing up, you don't always hear parents say things like, I love you, or I'm so proud of you. It's more like they give you tough love.
Yeah. It's love.
It's love, but it's
tough.
expressed differently.
Expressed a little differently, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember growing up, I actually wanted to be a Broadway singer.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's why we're like weirdest peas in a pod.
But I hate camera.
You hate
I
cameras.
hate taking pictures. But if you were to ask my mom, my parents are really supportive. That I have to give to them. But it wasn't always like that. It was always like, we want you to be a lawyer in the Air Force. Not the typical, we want you to be a nurse. It's more like,
Wow.
and
Very specific.
I took a different road. And it's interesting because the career that I have now isn't always what I had in mind. I always thought I will end up in the entertainment industry. I always thought I'm either going to be a Broadway singer, even though I can't really sing anymore, or I was going to be a booking agent for a modeling agency, which I pursued. And it was really tough to be in that industry. And it was almost like, well, my dream didn't come true. What's next? And I kind of just allowed things to kind of happen organically.
There it
Kind of
is.
how like I'm going with the flow and how my life and my career is going now.
Yeah.
But now I know my mom and my dad. I know they're super proud, even though it wasn't until lately that they started expressing it. But it was it wasn't always like that. And I remember before I had my daughter, I never had this loving or supportive relationship with my parents. I'm just so happy that my daughter gets to hear that I love you from my mom and my dad at her age, because we didn't have that. I mean, I don't know about both of you.
I mean, for me, my parents, well, my mom always, she would say I love you a lot, and I would be really annoyed with it. So it was like almost opposite, where I was like, ew, mom. Why?
We love.
Because I knew from my dad and the rest of the family that
Yeah.
don't do it.
Yeah.
So I was like, what is this? And so, but my dad hasn't started saying it until literally like 5 years ago. And he's now going to be 70 this year.
Yeah.
And so, and
It's just my dad.
Oh, great. And so it's like he says it, but you can tell it's like effort. Like he has to like think about it and be like, I love you, because I need to say it like that. Like not because it like just comes out.
You're like, what's the catch?
Yeah, right. What's the catch? Like, what do you, where he's
What
like,
is it?
what do you want? Like, you need money? Like, it's that thing. But, I know we've talked about this too. It's just the I love you comes in a different form.
Yeah.
So, like, there is the tough love, of course, but then there's the are you hungry?
Yeah.
Did you eat yet? Like, there's a lot of that. That's
It's
the
like
first thing my dad will
it's-
ask me. It's like, I'll get in the car and he'll be like, oh, how was your flight? Did you eat yet? And it's like, it's his version of like, welcome home, love you, and so, but we don't know what that means, because we're in this culture where it's more common to say I love you rather than that. But then you go home to the Philippines and you see everybody does that, and you're like, oh, generational trauma. But
So it's like that.
but it's
that.
also,
It's like that.
for me, like my parents, they were always very supportive of what I was doing. But the catch was always a catch. The catch was, we're supportive of everything you do as long as you do the thing we want you to do. So like, we'll be supportive of you doing the arts and doing theater and doing musicals, as long as when you go to college you study this. It was never just whatever you do, it's fine. It was like, no, there's an asterisk. Because of the kind of almost immigrant parent guilt of like, we gave up our lives and came here and we're doing everything for you.
Yeah.
So the only way you can kind of repay us without saying repay us is do the one thing that we want you to do. And it just comes from a place of trying to find security for us, because that's all they know.
I think there's a word for that, right? They call it utang na loob. It's
Yeah,
like
utang ng
we're
loob.
making all this sacrifice for
Yeah,
you.
it's like a
the least
debt.
you can do is
Like a heart debt,
Blank.
right? Is what it is.
It sounds like a condition.
Right.
We'll love you, we'll
If.
champion you, if you do what we say about your life. And I had that exact situation, and I've told you about that. My dad sent me an email on ultimatum in the middle of my first year of acting school, and it was only a 2-year program. So I wasn't even done with the
Yeah.
first semester. And he basically said, I hope you're having fun in acting school, but at the end of your 2 years there, if you don't get a job that pays you $100,000 a year, then you have to come back home, live under my roof, go to school, like at SF State, get a degree. I don't care what it's in. You can't do theater unless you get good grades. And once you have a degree, you can go off and do whatever you want. That, I think, was his love language
Yeah.
of setting me up for the success he understood and what he knew. What that left me with was this feeling of being trapped because I was barely 21 and didn't have agency, and I was still learning the world. I was still learning my business.
There's always a lot to learn. I mean, I like to think I'm still learning each day about my industry. And I know it's the same thing with, you guys' industry as well.
Yeah, but there's a curiosity that I think is just imperative in any business, especially when you're building
Yeah.
something new or you're going to another level of success that you have yet to accomplish,
Yeah.
like going into the unknown. And I think at that time, I knew I was going into the unknown, and I just had this feeling, instead of thinking of what my dad was saying as, I love you and I'm going to protect you and I'm here for you, I heard, you can't get what you want. Your life doesn't belong to you until I say so. And I know that sounds harsh, but it's true in terms of how I felt. But what I did with that throughout my life is what I think is interesting. What do you take from the pain of the past? Do you turn it into something that's for you, or do you keep it on the shelf that says pain, trauma, things that I'll always carry with me like weights or shackles? And I just didn't want to live my life that way. So I turned a corner.
It's just kind of odd because, with our culture, they really have a different way of showing they love you, right? You talked about you go
Eating
home,
food.
have you eaten yet?
Yeah.
And the way they show how they want us to be successful is trying to have that control. They might not see it as a control. For them, it's like, it's my way of guiding and protecting
Yeah,
them.
guiding, protecting, that's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, but with the culture that we have now, or how we understand it, is you're trying to control me. And you have two options. Either you allow that to be a control, or you can take that as a motivation or as a lesson, like, well, no, this is what I want to do, and you watch me do this.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be successful, right?
That's just like my 20s. You just described what I did. Well, because I got a job out of college, and it was for the 42nd Street First National Tour. 42nd Street is a Broadway tap musical that was still open on Broadway at the time. And I booked it, like out of college, one of my first audition. I didn't call my dad to ask him permission. I told him. Because my dream literally was coming true. All of my hard work, all the dancing like Gene Kelly in the living room and like Michael Jackson and playing piano and learning clarinet.
So you play piano.
I mean, in the Filipino culture, we do a lot of things.
Yeah, I played the violin.
There you go.
I did not play
Don Mike.
instruments because I was a bad kid. So in this one moment, my mom wanted me to learn piano too. But I guess I pissed her off that day. And I will always remember this day. It was in the Philippines. We lived there for a couple of years. And she said to me, I'm going to make you live at the piano school because of what you did today. And I was like, I never want to learn piano ever. And
Wow.
so it didn't happen. And so today I'm like, Mom, I could have been the next Mozart, but you told me that you're going to lock me up at the piano school. So that's why I don't play an instrument. So my instrument is my voice.
And what a beautiful voice it is.
I heard you sing, yeah.
I mean, that's how
I heard both of you sing.
I mean, that's how we met. Like,
Yeah.
like you
You
produced.
sing?
Well,
You have a karaoke
you're
machine?
an actor,
I want to
what?
be your friend.
What? You perform?
Well, that was one of the things that attracted me to Don Mike, because not only was he an amazing producer, and did he treat actors really well, and did he understand what it takes to do that job? Just like you being a modeling manager or agent, you wanted to do that because you understood the client and what their mind is, and you wanted to be a part of how they perceive the business, how they perceive themselves, and how they grow. And I saw that in you. I just thought, what a nurturing space to be in for someone who has already been so accomplished, but is also continuing to build and grow and take up more space. And it wasn't too long after we met that all of a sudden I had a solo show, my own cabaret, no script, bullet points. I had my songs, I had an accompanist, and anything could happen. And Don Mike was the one to say, you're really talented, you should do this, try this. I said, I always wanted to, but I'm scared. And he didn't always know why, and I kept trying to tell him why, and he just kept listening to me, and I just kept going back on stage. And my heart, I felt it didn't get bigger, it's just the thing in front of my heart started to open more and more and more, which made me feel very vulnerable and at times felt unsafe. But I also realized that's the way to live your life.
Yeah.
With your heart open, no matter how painful life can be or what has happened to us in the past, because we are the ones who are in charge of how we heal from the past, so that we can go from things that happened to us to, no, those things happened for me
reason.
and for a reason for me. And it took me a while to discover, like to find the treasure, to discover this treasure. Oh, I was thinking about it this one way this entire time, and it served me only so much. But now that I've changed my point of view, the same thing, the same exact situation. I just changed my point of view, my perspective. Time heals, right? You learn things, you grow, and you get friends and family, and you have your tribe, the people you want to spend time with, and they help you feel like yourself. And all of a sudden, you're a different version of yourself. And then you look back, and it is different. Like, it's different. And I think that's one of the things that bonded us was knowing that we did have challenging relationships with our Filipino families and the different generations that were involved in that as we grew up. But look at us. We're here and we're talking about it, and we're out in the world representing our culture, and we're creating jobs, opportunities. We're taking up space. We're saying what we believe in, and we're holding this this compassionate, open, creative, collaborative energy that isn't necessarily what we grew up with, but because we didn't grow up with it, we know, no, that's for me, and that's for us, that's for everyone.
Yeah.
And just because I didn't grow up with it the way I wanted to, doesn't mean anyone did anything wrong. It doesn't mean I can't have what I want. It just means you have to work that much harder and be that much more focused.
But I think, you're fortunate, and I think we're all fortunate that, we didn't follow the path that our parents wanted us to take, right? But we still followed a path that's, close to our heart. We followed our heart. And even though, to me, it's scary when you think about it now, when you're trying to accomplish something or you're in this journey and you almost feel like, well, they don't believe in me, so why should I believe myself? And it does take a lot of guts to take those necessary steps to follow your heart, because we're from the culture that, well, if you're not this, if you're not that, then what are you? Are you a failure? And before, coming from the fashion industry, and which didn't work out for me at all.
But you did it.
Yeah, you tried.
I tried it, right?
You did it.
And in some ways, I felt like I'm such a failure. Here I am, coming home, from New York, going to San Diego, and I'm like, it didn't work out. But, I look back at my journey now, I'm like, okay, that didn't work out because I'm not meant to be in this path. I'm meant to be somewhere else. And, you and I have always had this talk, like so many changes happen in your life, right? And you get disappointed at why is it not working out? And instead of dwelling on why is it not working out, you focus more on, well, what can I do to open other doors and go on a different journey?
Yeah, I think it's battling that idea that was really ingrained in us from our immigrant parents, which I don't think they did it on purpose, but the saying and the phrase "not good enough" was something that haunted all of us, is because our parents were always so about achievement, about being the best, assimilating into a culture that wasn't theirs, so they wanted us to do the same thing. So if we couldn't do that, they kind of inferred, they didn't tell us, but they inferred in their actions and their tone that what we were doing is not good enough. So we kind of internalized that. But like we were saying, the three of us are here because we took that and we learned from it, and we turned it into positive energy, kinetic energy to move forward, rather than being like, oh, I'm not good enough, I'm going to give up. So we did something else. But I agree with what you said about telling your parents rather than asking them about actions.
And that's hard to do.
Yes, really hard, because I
Really
did the
hard to
same.
do.
I went to American University and I was supposed to study broadcast journalism and political science because my parents were like, you're going to DC, that's what you're going to study because you're going to go into journalism and become, do politics. I hated politics. I got to school, took a class, it was awful, but I knew I loved theater and the arts and performing because I did it in high school. So I got into a show my freshman fall. And I thought it was just, again, for fun, because I was like, this is a hobby, I need to study these other things. But it wasn't. Like, I knew that this is what I needed to do. And so I did what you did, and I auditioned for the musical theater program that spring, got in.
Yeah.
And once I got the letter, I went home for the summer, and I went to my dad, and I was like, so I did this, okay, bye. And he was like, what is this? And it was my acceptance letter into the musical theater program. And he was like, oh, so you're going to do this and politics and journalism? That seems like a lot. And I was like, no, I'm going to not do politics and just do the other two. Don't be mad. And he was like, okay. And he wasn't like angry, but you could feel it. You knew that he was like,
Yeah.
well, that's not what we wanted you to do, but, we'll see. He actually was nice enough to be like, well, we'll see where it goes. Because the catch for me was, at least I still have the journalism side.
Yeah.
Because then he, in his mind, he knew there was still a job at the end of that, if there needed to be. So that, for me, that's how I grew up. There was always the catch. It's like, okay, we'll support that, but there needs to be the other part that still
It's
supports
very
what we want.
conditional.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
So what is it about the Filipino culture that you're so proud of?
Oh man, so many things. Like, I think, and I know this word gets kind of a lot of bad rep, but resilience. Like, Filipinos are so resilient. Like, we know how to solve problems. We know how to work with people. We know how to build bridges and just like help people heal. We don't know how to heal ourselves. We know how to heal
We
other
can help
people,
others.
nurses. But like, it's I think it's that for me is just the resilience of the culture. Like, we're a culture that was oppressed for 400 years. We never had our own country until 1945,
Yeah.
like after World War
History
II.
lesson, yeah.
It's like, so we really have only had the Philippines for under 100 years to be Filipino, to not be another country's thing, even though people can argue we still are. But, so that, the way that we can keep going and keep creating.
I stole mine.
Sorry.
I was just in Manila a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Thanks to Don
Well,
Mike.
yes, and it.
Yeah. Yes. And yes, Don Mike and I were in Manila a few weeks ago, and it was my first time since I was 4. So it was practically
Wow.
the first time I've
first
ever
time
been.
ever, yeah.
Ever, right? And I remember feeling different because I had not connected to the motherland ever.
Do you feel connected now?
Very connected. Because when I was there, you had told me a lot about the Philippines. I've heard about the Philippines from many of my family members throughout my entire life. But being there was very, very different. And thankfully, aside from the master classes I taught and the solo show I did and the meetings we had, I got to take a little tour. And during that, it was supposed to be an hour and a half long tour, but we had 30 minutes. But in that 30 minutes, the history lesson that they gave us, it brought me to the same conclusion that Don Mike just said. I didn't realize how resilient the Filipino culture really is. I just completely blinded, just sheer ignorance on my part. When I had that realization, I combined it with this awareness of the Philippines, that everyone is so kind and warm and generous and positive, and they smile. And I noticed, it's a third world country. I saw people who were living in shanties who were struggling to make ends meet, and I saw people who were affluent. But no matter who I saw smiles, and I saw courtesy. And I asked Don Mike, is this really how it's like? He's like, yeah, in this culture, like, we're courteous to everyone. And I just went, that resonates in my heart, because that's the kind of person I want to be. Yeah. I just didn't realize the person that I've been cultivating for the last 7 years of my life, reinventing myself, focusing on my mental health, my family, my art. I take a lot of classes every week, dance, acting, and singing. those qualities are actually Filipino qualities. Like it's a part of my heritage as a Filipino.
It's a part of you.
It's a part of me. So that resilience, I mean, it hit me, and I went, that's how I got here. Was my Filipino resilience.
Filipino roots,
Like you could call it just resilience, but no. Historically speaking, my ancestors, for 400 years, like there's a building in Manila that was burned down 8 times and rebuilt.
And it's still,
and it's still
there.
That just kind of wrecked me, shook me, and brought me this huge sense of gratitude. And it made me feel very proud to be a Filipino. And it made me more curious now as to the other aspects of my life and growing up that where I found strength, and asking myself, how is that Filipino? How is that another part of me? Because I didn't always get the support I wanted from my Filipino family or friends, but I knew they loved me so much.
They
and I
just
knew-
show it in such a different
way.
way.
Like they cooked for me, and that's the other thing too, is that love languages is a real thing.
Yeah.
So if you speak a different love language than someone you care about, then you're not going to love each other the way you need
to be loved, yeah.
unless you learn their love language and you speak their love language and they learn yours.
Yeah.
And then you are that much closer. But that kind of stuff isn't taught to anyone.
No.
And I don't think in any culture. So,
No.
so I think that's the battle
Yeah.
we had, and now we're here to just talk about it in the open because we know we're not alone in these struggles, right?
It's just saying, you really have to understand our culture to just know, like, this is how we are. This is how our parents are, right? And I remember, my daughter spent a month in the Philippines last summer.
Yeah.
And I asked her, what is it about the Filipino culture that you like? And she's like, Mom, people that are just so happy. They don't have a whole lot, but they're just so happy. And she went to the Philippines with 5 suitcases, right? And every single photos that I would see, she's wearing flip-flops, she's wearing jean shorts and a white shirt. And my mom said she had me wash her clothes every night. So I asked her, why do you keep wearing the same clothes? She said, because people like simple things and I wanted to blend in. And to me, it's like, okay, she's learning about our culture, because that's how it is in the Philippines.
Yeah.
People appreciate the little things. And you go to the area where there isn't, they're not, they don't have a lot,
Right.
but they have their family.
Yeah.
They eat together.
They do.
And we don't do that
Yeah,
here in
no.
the U.S. It's like
Different culture.
we get
right?
to have that on Christmas or
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But there, every Sunday, they get together
Yeah.
and dinner, they all sit down, and that makes them happy. And I wish that's something that we can still, carry, being more Americanized, right?
Yeah,
That's-
I had a huge taste of that with Don Mike's family. That was the last night. Like it was like you
Yeah,
basically
the
had
despedida party.
a party.
Yeah, like that's
like-
every trip, and you know it too. It's
Yeah.
like anytime you're there and it's time to leave, there will always be a party because it's a goodbye party. It's a celebration that we all got to.
It's always
be
a celebration.
together. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it
Always,
really
that We all
was.
got to reunite and see each other again
And meet each other. I
yeah,
didn't
meet
know
each
some of your
other.
family. They were so warm to me. Even the kids.
Yeah.
Would follow me around.
Like instantly adopted. My cousins were like, "Thanks for bringing our new cousin home, Vinny."
It's like that. Everyone's cousins.
Yeah.
They get to know you. They welcome each other home. Your family.
So-
Yeah, that's literally what Don Mike said to me. That's what they said to me. I felt it, and I remember we were like outside
Yeah.
in the front area, like I don't know, it wouldn't call it a
like
front
it's
yard,
like the-
a patio,
Kind of like the front of the house. The
front of the
behind
house.
the gate.
Very-
just
behind the
they call
gate.
it
like a sitting,
veranda?
yeah,
Veranda?
like veranda kind
like a
of place.
miranda.
Yeah.
And I remember it was nighttime. We had all eaten, and it
Did
was
you sing karaoke afterwards too?
we didn't sing karaoke.
Because that's like a Filipino.
Right, you could have gotten
That's-
there.
yeah.
I mean, we would have thrown down, but they also knew I was there I was
Yeah.
there singing already and performing, and I wanted to just be there and
Yeah.
enjoy the party. I did end up doing a lot of magic tricks because I love magic. The kids loved it. I knew your relatives would enjoy it, and for me, it's like when I grew up discovering magic and becoming a huge fan of being a magician and
Yeah.
watching magic shows. It wasn't about fooling anyone. I just noticed people's reactions to magic.
And I got to see your magic show once in San Francisco.
You saw my
did.
solo show and you saw my magic. Yeah, I did a whole
Yes,
magic
I got
portion.
to see that.
You got
like,
to see
the
it.
VIP event where you had.
Oh yes, I did. Those were those were very specific.
That was really,
and
that
very-
was a special night because your family actually came
my family.
and your high school
Oh my
friends.
Like your whole
It
life.
was my whole San Francisco life.
Yeah.
Was there. The teachers who helped mentor me, directors, music directors, people who've just known me since I was 16 years old, when I dreamt of maybe one day being on Broadway. I never thought I'd be a TV star. I never thought I'd star in Hallmark movies. I never thought I'd be the voice of Raiden. I never thought I'd be doing voiceovers for Dune, sounding like the movie guy, like the trailer guy,
Yeah.
in a world where everything's dark.
Oh, that was you?
Like,
I did not know.
well, it is now. but you know what I mean? Like, your dreams feel so far away. And I think it's something in our culture, dreams are not a part of how we're raised.
Yeah.
You know, because dreams can feel very extravagant, you know. And we did come from a culture where we did build up resilience because we had to battle war and being oppressed. So I think there's a slight sense of conservative in the choices you make with the life you
It's
have.
like you have to be realistic with how you dream, right? And here in America, it's like you
can
have to
dream
dream
whatever.
big.
Yeah,
Because you can do anything.
You can, but what's interesting about that is when you dream big, just like you, and you didn't work out the first time, but you pivoted so quickly and you went to something else, and then you went to something else. You were Indiana Jones looking for that treasure, but you were looking for the treasure.
Yeah.
You didn't just, well, I'm going to do this and it's done and I make money and the rest of my life, now I can focus on these other things. No, we are the kinds of human beings who are in pursuit, regardless of our ethnic background. And I think it's just, for me, I think it's more impressive when you see a member of the AAPI community, you know, whether it's Filipino or just Chinese, Asian, Taiwanese, whatever, what have you, Japanese, who are in entertainment and specifically a position of executive or leadership, because we are not raised
Raised to.
or farmed, nurtured to do that. So when I meet people like you, I cling a little bit because it reminds me that anything is possible.
So I do have to say that you actually paved the way for Filipino-American romantic leading role in a TV network. Did I say that right?
Yeah, I mean that was
It's a bit of a mouthful.
It's a mouthful. That was Josh Chan. Yeah, we didn't realize it till after Crazy Ex-Girlfriend had started that Josh Chan was the first Filipino to ever lead a network TV show. We saw Paolo Montalban in Cinderella, and if you didn't,
Love
you
that
need
Cinderella.
to. Brandy, Victor Garber, Jason
Whitney
Alexander,
Houston.
Whitney Houston.
I think what it is, because there really isn't like a, at least at that time, there really isn't like a Disney princess that's Asian, right? So
Well, they were sung by them, but not like.
But
I didn't
not
have
like-
one until
Yeah.
Mulan.
Yeah.
Cinderella's not one.
But you know, Cinderella, when I saw Brandy, I'm like,
right?
that's so awesome. And then you see like a Filipino
Yeah.
actor, you're like,
It really, I think, like that really supercharged me as a young, aspiring artist to see. I mean, I idolize Whoopi Goldberg. I idolize Victor Garber. Victor Garber is Broadway history. He's the original Antony in Sweeney Todd. Whoopi Goldberg, Sister Act. I mean, Ghost. Like,
Great
I
movie,
mean,
yeah.
right? So and Jason Alexander, like Seinfeld, and he was dreaming of holding Tony Awards and doing Tony Award speeches when he was a kid because he wanted to be on Broadway. So I'm watching these icons, and Brandy, I mean, I was a huge fan of Moesha, and Paulo, I'm just like, who is this guy who looks like me, obviously taller than me, but who is just showing me that Filipinos can do this and that they deserve to have space in entertainment. And I remember thinking to myself, I can do that, and I want that to be me one day. And it didn't turn into that right away. I was in New York trying to be on Broadway, and 11 years was how long I spent there pursuing that dream, which didn't happen yet.
Yeah.
But Crazy Ex-Girlfriend happened instead. So these 11 years, in a way, were preparation for this huge opportunity that I never knew was coming, that I didn't know how to prepare for, but yet through like that resilience, that Filipino resilience, like still dreaming big and knowing I had the warmth and love and the creativity of a Filipino family, because there was a piano in my house. My sister was a dancer and a singer, and my other sisters were like playing other instruments, and they were independent. They were leaders. They were, you know, they were like paving their own ways, and so I wanted my own version of that, and it turned out to be acting, and over time it just kind of snowballed into other things, and essentially I just, you know, when I teach, I call it like following the energy. Like follow your passion, but really more accurately, it's following that impulse that makes you feel alive.
And there's a lot that happens in the dance studio because it's so liberating when you're trying, especially for me. You know, I've danced many, many years ago, but it's almost like, you know, like Latin dancing. So for me to, you know, have a lesson with you and the conversation that we had there, it's like, okay, this is not just your typical, you know, dance lesson. There's more to it because you learn so much about yourself when you're doing something that's so uncomfortable. Like this.
But look at you now, Frank. I remember that first conversation.
When I tell you, I don't like to be in front of the camera.
But I think that's something I'm definitely used to when it comes to education. And Don, Mike, and I have this in common because we both are curious. We like learning new things. And we have a lot of great discussions about the realizations and the revelations we have, things that went well, things that didn't go well.
I feel like that's part of kind of the growing and the changing and the healing, is that we are knowing that we can have these conversations, and you providing the space for us to talk about it, you know, already shows that we're making the progress, that like we want to make the change. And so what he's saying about long conversations, we just talk about whatever, because we know that things that matter, because we know what it's like to be, and not on purpose because they didn't know any better and didn't have the tools, but like we know not to diminish a topic or diminish something that seems important to people of our generation. So, this is important.
You know, when I started taking classes with you, then when I met you, I was such in a weird point of my life, right? Because at that time I was trying to figure things out. You know, there was something inside of me that needed to get out. It almost felt like I was in a cage, and I'm just like, you know, trying to kick the door and trying to figure out like, what am I supposed to be doing? I was unhappy, but I was afraid to take that next step because I didn't know where I was gonna go after that. So to me, our lesson kind of became like therapy session.
I mean, it's not. You're not wrong.
Our work meetings are like that.
Well, I mean, I had a former colleague of mine say to me, you know, this business relationship is not supposed to be a therapy session. And when I heard this person say that, it hurt a little because I felt immediately misunderstood. And I started to clock that in our previous conversations, how I was talking and where I was coming from. And I thought the person receiving this information knew the context. Which for me was, I need you to understand that I'm a human being. I'm going through a lot right now, but I'm still trying. I'm building. I'm failing. I'm struggling, but I'm growing. I'm getting better. I'm getting stronger. So I know, and every other artist knows this, and you're an artist, that when you do
by
hit
accident.
those walls, well, I mean, I think that's the point I was going to make, is that I don't think it's an accident. I think art and the expression of art, no matter what it is, for you talk about singing, you're a singer, I love to dance, I'm an actor, I like to act on camera, in a voiceover booth, on stage. I like to tap dance. There's styles of dance, ballroom, all these art forms. Martial arts. I did martial arts for 10 years. I still do martial arts. They're arts. Art has a way of stimulating your brain and your spirit that nothing else does. the same way. So for you, one of the things I keep in mind whenever I teach anyone or I work with anyone is I know that art has a very important job in the development of who a person is. Their relationship to their art is going to tell me a lot about how they see themselves and how in touch they are with who they truly can be. And I saw that in you, and I see that in the colleagues and the people I get to work with. I just got really lucky with you because I had a student who was open and who wanted to grow, and you inherently knew that it would take facing those challenges, facing yourself, failing, feeling like a failure, even though you might not be, or seeing those doors close, and the feelings that come with it. But guess what happened after that? You persevered.
I think what it is, I mean, you said something, during one of our classes, and it kind of motivated me, and it gave me that courage. I'm like, you know what? You're right. Because you said to me, I might be your dance instructor, but I'm much more than that. I'm your mentor also. And I know the conversations that, him and I had at the dance studio was like, I'm in this journey. At that time, I thought the journey was just about weight loss and trying to take time away from work, have that break from my phone and doing something for myself. But it became much more than the dance lesson, because in that realm, I found the courage to, you know what? I'm unhappy at this part of my life. I'm going to take our conversation and allow that to motivate me to, instead of continuing in that direction, I'm going to make a pivot and go in this direction, because I know how, regardless of how scary and how uncomfortable that direction could be, like not knowing how
Scary.
I was going to do things
Oh my
or how I'm going
gosh.
to make it happen.
It's terrifying, right?
Yes. And I remember, I think it was during one of our phone calls, the three of us, when I said, you know what? I decided that I'm going to change my career and do this. And I realize now that I had to close that door in order for me to open a much wider door, right? And you take the people with you.
Yes.
And, one of our conversations, what you said to me, that you cannot be scared to do what makes you happy.
Yeah, and also not to be afraid to ask for what you want, because, and not being afraid of no. It's kind of what I say to, because I'm not a young person anymore. When I say to young people, like, I tell them,
we're all in our 20s.
Yeah, like we're all 25.
Sure. Here.
To not be afraid to ask and hear the no, because if you don't ever ask, you'll never know.
Exactly.
And that phrase that like hungry mouths don't get, or closed mouths don't get fed.
Don't get fed, yeah.
So we're doing that. Like, we're being fearless, and we're asking questions, and we're moving towards what we want, because we just have to. And so, and it's showing. You're pivoting, and you wouldn't have all of this and this show. We wouldn't be here if you didn't decide to make that leap. And that's something that maybe our parents taught us in a different way. Because they had their version of that by coming here. So I think it's that cross-cultural communication where it doesn't, it's not the same. So, and that's kind of where our conflicts come with our parents, is because we probably do want the same thing, but the way it's being talked about and communicated is not the same. It's different. So,
there's so much about our culture that, it took me some time to understand. For instance, here in America, when you're having a conversation with someone, even someone older than you, you look at them in the eye, because that's the way you should communicate, right? I remember getting in trouble from my mom. I think I was like 12 or 13 when I think I got in trouble at school.
Okay.
And I looked her in the eye, and she's like, well, you're not supposed to do that. And I realized that in our culture, when you look down, when you're having a conversation with someone older than you, that shows respect.
Oh, interesting.
It's like deference.
And I still do not understand that.
But I think that's common in Asian cultures, right? The, like, bowing, or like, making sure you make yourself small. Yeah, you make yourself smaller than the person you're trying to either talk to or impress, especially if they're older, because there's that societal hierarchy that doesn't exist in American culture. Because in America, everyone's free, everyone's the same. supposedly. But in Filipino culture, there's the hierarchy of not just generation, but also gender, and also wealth, and also there's a caste system that is not as spoken about as, say, Indian culture. So there's that, I think, and that contributes to that.
So do you think, because, I heard you mention that 5 years ago you heard your dad said, "I love you," right? And my father is getting better at saying "I love you," whether it's through text messages. And, sometimes it's uncomfortable because I'm
Yeah, it's
not
like
used
weird.
to it. So I'm
Yeah.
like, what do you want? You want me to DoorDash you something?
Yeah, you're like, what do you need me to do? Like what chore are you going to give me?
What do you want me to do?
Yeah.
And, with my mom, she's more vocal about,
Yeah.
and
My mom, too.
sometimes I like the other day I asked her a question and I was just trying to make what we call lambing, right? I'm like, do you love me? How much do you love me? Am I your favorite daughter? Even though I know I'm the favorite daughter. But do you think our age has something to do with being vocal about our feelings?
I think so. And especially if you've left the home to live in the culture without them, you learn that, oh my gosh, other people say what they feel, other people, speak up. And so you bring that home. And of course, that kind of opens up other cans of worms where they're like, well, all of a sudden you're this way, But yeah, I think that's what it is. At least for me, like I learned it outside of our home, like at college, at grad school, at working. And so has it led to conflicts? Of course. But I think I'm lucky enough though that my parents, even though it pissed them off, they knew where it came from. They weren't like, oh, he's suddenly being disrespectful. They're like, oh no, he's part American. Like he grew up here. So like they are now starting to realize, in addition to the I love you, understanding that like culturally, me and my siblings, because I have a brother and two sisters who are through my dad's second marriage, we just are different. Like there's a different cultural streak in terms of communication that they don't get. And so we're kind of at a point where it's just kind of like a let bygones be bygones, as opposed to like when we were kids, it was really that control thing you talked about earlier. Like, oh, we're going to push so hard on them so they don't become like that.
Yeah.
But now they can't control it because we're all grown-ups now.
grown-ups,
So, yeah.
I think the older you get, the more you connect with your parents and the more you want to fix your relationship with them, right?
Yeah.
Because, you go through this year, like I remember when I was a teenager, I'm like, I can't wait to get out of the house. I can't wait to live my whole life. And I did. I left home very early and lived my whole life. And now it's like, I want to go home.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is like, I think there's something cyclical about these relationships. And, I didn't know that you left home so early. So did one of my
16,
sisters.
yeah.
My sister left at 16. I remember she emancipated herself.
Yeah, I did not, I didn't go to prom. So I never
Right,
had
well,
like a prom picture.
yeah.
I didn't, I remember working 3 jobs in high school. Like I would go to a photography studio right after school. Then after that, I'll go to the movie theater and work until 1 o'clock in the morning, then go home, then go to school. Then on weekends, I was juggling 2 jobs. So I think that kind of paved the way of me like wanting to work a lot.
Yeah.
Because I'm just used to that kind of lifestyle.
Independence.
Independence, yeah. And well, that's the thing is, I think no matter what culture we're talking about, I mean, right now we're focused on Filipino culture. We're also talking about, if we zoom out a bit, just overall human compassion.
Yeah.
How the other half lives, how that culture sees looking down versus eye contact, how that culture bows, how that culture, when you shake hands, you put the other hand on top. Or when you bow, you have to bow lower than the person who bows. These are things that are taught to you. But when you're in different cultures, who's teaching you that?
Right.
And are they teaching you why? And are they teaching you where it comes from and what the ramifications are if you don't follow that? And so I think there's just this general theme of being understanding, compassionate, empathetic to people who are different than you, who were raised different than you, whose customs and cultures are different than you. And when we were growing up in our Filipino culture, no different than any other culture, there's a little tunnel vision, right? Unless you are in a melting pot of cultures at school or your family, like you have a bunch of friends and everyone's from everywhere, so you're getting all this cross-culture, socioeconomic energy, and I didn't grow up with that. I remember being told certain things, and I remember abiding by most of them, but there was always a little voice in me that went, are you sure? Like a curiosity in me that would go away. And the only way I could honor it was by accepting the fact that none of us know what's next. Ever. Ever. Your parents, your grandparents, anyone.
We don't even know what we're going to do tomorrow.
We don't even
happen
know.
tomorrow, yeah.
Like anything can happen, but that's the thing that we weren't taught, and that's the lesson that we need. And it's this. In order to find the gold, you have to be looking for it. It's not just going to happen out of nowhere. And you can only discover something if you're in search of it. You can only be in search of something if you believe there's something out there for you. And I know that as much as we are loved by our families and our parents and the cultures that we grew up in, some of those themes of humanity and self-acceptance and self-worth and self-esteem and just authenticity, those things get like lost and they're not valued.
Yeah.
And they get put in a box somewhere because it gets in the way of all this history that's preceded you. And I know there's a battle between kind of old and new, and I don't think it needs to be a battle. I think it's an honoring of both. But
And finding that balance.
and finding the balance.
Yeah.
But you said finding. You have to want to find it. And I think that's the difference. We often find rigidity in our parents and in certain cultures and in our family dynamics because there's a fear, an uncertainty that people are trying to avoid for themselves. And when they love you or care about you or they have any charge of you, they want to protect you from it. And that's how they do it. And it's not looked on or taken as an act of love. It feels like an act of restraint, which means you are not free to fly. You are not free to soar over that mountain and see what's on the other side. You're not free to swim down this lake or to pedal this bike up the ridge and through the darkness. And like, no, it's too dangerous. Is it? How do you know? You don't.
Yeah.
I'm going to go find out. People do crazy, extraordinary, dangerous things all the time. People move to New York City with nothing and live on couches and carry 60-pound duffel bags and audition for things that they didn't get in a city where no one gives a crap about you. You have to hold your own. And I put myself in that environment and I was afraid and I didn't have a home. I never had an address in New York. I didn't have money flowing to me. I didn't know how to take care of money. But yet I found a way. I found a way to persevere. And I found people. I found chosen family who believed in me in ways perhaps my family didn't. And so I got the best of these two worlds, my family, my blood family, and then my chosen family. And I think you learn a lot from both. And I think it gives you more context as you get older. So now the things that bothered you before about your family or culture, you don't take it as personally because you know it's not about you.
Yeah.
It's kind of about us and where we can be now to help facilitate these kinds of conversations and this level of growth. And I think art is one of the common things that helps us do that.
It's fun. It's interesting. You said you mentioned New York because New York was where I went to pursue my dream, right? And the song New York, New York, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere.
That's right, baby.
I'm a New York reject.
I don't know about that. I think it was your pre-success.
Exactly.
It was your jumping off point to the newer,
New
bigger,
York was
better
a place
things.
where I thought I was going to pursue my dream. I was going to live in this penthouse and be this big old booking agent, right?
Yeah.
But in reality, I was sharing a room with 5 models, babysitting them in bunk beds, and I didn't really have a permanent address. But it kind of led the way to, where I'm meant to be, right? And now, I go back to New York frequently because opening up a clinic in New York.
Congratulations.
So it's just kind of interesting how
great.
it's a whole circle. So what are you both up to now?
Oh gosh. well, I can say thanks to Don Mike. I'm on my way to taking my second trip to Manila, and we're going to be following up on some contacts we have there. Okay. So I'll also be doing some teaching, some master classes, improv, musical theater, acting technique for the camera, and dance. I'm also right now building my corporate speaking business. I love teaching. I've been doing it since I graduated from college in 2003. I have found since the pandemic, through like research and books and psychology and studying my neurodiversity, because I'm neurodivergent, gifted, I'm a hypersensitive person, and I have undiagnosed ADHD. Through that learning, my compassion widened.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the teaching that I did before was new to me. And you were a part of this discovery I had.
Discovery.
I was
You were a part of my discovery.
too. But see what happens, like, I call it jazz. You gotta make room for jazz, you know? You gotta make room for jazz. Or make room for Jello. Like, there's always room for Jello.
For Jello.
But jazz is another version of that. Like, there has to be room for improvisation, because you really don't know. You have to be able to pivot, because the tree that doesn't sway with the wind snaps.
That's true.
So, like, you know, those are the things that kind of built me up to this point where now I want to speak and profess and mentor and pass down and share, because I remember what it was like to be young Vinny, and then like you remember what it was like to be young Frankie and young Don Mike, and what would you want to give your younger self?
Your younger version,
and so that's where I'm at. So I'm pitching scripts now, treatments for movies with my name on it.
Awesome.
People are pitching movies and putting my name as an attached actor to a character, and I didn't write it. They're just writing something, sending it off, putting my name on it, because they know me, they know my work, they know my heart, they know what roles I want to play. And so it's a new beginning, and it's scary because of what's happening in the industry here in LA. Many of us are moving. I've been back and forth on leaving LA, and that's really scary. But through all these challenges, you find so much out about yourself. And so even though I don't know what's going to happen, I do know that everything that's happened in the last 2 years, since meeting you, since meeting Don Mike, that things are looking up. It's a great little world we live in.
This makes life interesting.
Little Gershwin quote for you.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing a lot of work with Vinny and with his production company, and trying to help him kind of and we're not going to say rebuild, but reintroduce him into this industry that he's made such a big impression on. So change happens when it's supposed to happen. I think that we're at the front of this very big change for him that's also affecting me with my stuff as well. So the cabaret concert company, Latido, like if you're saying, what can you give your younger self? Like I'm giving my younger self the chance to just own it, but not run it anymore. Like I've gotten to a point where there's somebody who wants to take over, and I can say, great, I can just like watch you run with my brand, and I can have space to do other things. And so in terms of producing, trying to produce bigger projects, I'm producing a feature film, a feature musical film between the Philippines and the UK starting later this year, and kind of venturing more into TV film producing, which is exciting and scary because it's such a different animal than Broadway. And learning a lot of lessons along the way, also on the Broadway side. And, so doing that, and then trying to bulk up my own production company and make that more of an entity and kind of grow into that role. And also try to live this life and we talk about this all the time, like this is the life I wanted, so when it gets busy and it gets hard and it gets heavy, I wanted to be here, I wanted to be here.
Okay.
Right? But it doesn't feel like work, because this is what I wanted, it's no longer, I'm doing the show because I have to, it's because I want to. And so just becoming more creative and being in more, you can call it like taste setting or whatever, trend setting positions, rather than being the one to react to something. So being in the room where it happens with things that, create new things. That's what I'm up to nowadays.
So I want to close the show with like a little game, right? So just kind of get to know how well do you know our
I love a
culture.
game.
Okay. What is the national flower for the Philippines?
Don Mike?
Sampaguita.
You don't know?
We just told you. I'm kidding.
It's like it's jasmine here in the U.S., right?
I don't know what it is in the U.S. I just know it's the little
really
white
good.
flower.
Y'all,
Smells
flowers
amazing.
aren't my strong suit.
Sampaguita.
Flowers, you talk
Well,
about...
I mean, I don't do flowers either, but it's only because my family was like Sampaguita. Like it's
Sampaguita.
not like you must know. It just is.
Like, I didn't get that lesson.
Well, we're educating you now.
I was like, mabuhay, salamat po, ayaw na, lambada.
I don't think that's Filipino. Labada?
Labada.
Labada.
What's
Lambada
laundry?
is a dance.
Laundry, labada.
Laundry is labada.
Labada. Sorry, Mom.
Wow.
Sorry, Mom. Which camera? Mom. Sorry.
All right. Title of the Philippine national anthem.
All right. Lupang Hinirang. Yes,
Do you know the lyrics?
some of them. Should we sing it? Shall we
Shall
get
we
up
sing
and
it?
put
You
our
sing
hand
it.
on our hearts?
You sing it, and I'll beatbox it. Go.
All right,
Ready?
right, yeah.
Bayang magiliw, pagsilangalan, alab ng puso, sa dibdibong buhay, lupang hinirang. I don't know what's next.
Hey, at least you knew the words.
Sa dagat at bundok,
Budok,
sa simoy ay sa'yo langit mo'y buhay.
I just jazz handed it. I'm like, I'm just gonna jazz hand
This
it.
was my nightmare. Well, so when we lived in the Philippines for 2 years,
I know pa natang
when I was a
makabayan.
kid, when I was a kid at school, you sing the national anthem
Every
day.
morning.
Oh,
Every
so there's
day,
no way
every
you- yeah.
morning.
Then you
and
do the
like-
jumping
and-
jacks.
Yeah.
Oh my
it's
gosh.
Like PE
like
every
PE
day.
in the morning.
But when
I
I moved there, I didn't speak Tagalog yet, and so the teacher was like, "And go." And so a lot of that is literally me at 8 years old being like, "Na na 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 na."
Watermelon, peas and carrots, peas and carrots.
Right, and then at the end you're like, "Dahil sa'yo," and that's the end.
And you're just looking around like,
And you're like, "Yeah, yeah."
no one heard me.
How do you greet the elders in the Philippines?
Manapo.
Mano po.
I learned that.
How do you do you know how to do it?
Yes, you meet them.
I am older than you, so.
I said, well, I wouldn't. Yeah. Okay. Say, Manapo.
There you go. That's wonderful. All right. What are the three items that you will find in a Filipino household?
Wooden
First.
spoon and fork hanging on the wall, a big carpet display of The Last Supper, and oh my gosh, a floor runner.
Floor runner. 3 other things are a barrel man,
Tabo.
Tabo, that's the one.
and Tupperware that doesn't have what's on the label inside of it.
It's like one of those.
It's like leftovers.
It's like a Cool Whip
Or like the
container.
Yeah.
container
And then
from
there's-
Jollibee.
It's a container from
Yeah,
Jollibee,
and
and,
it's
the inside,
Vinuguan.
it's
And you're like,
Vinuguan. My favorite was the Cool Whip. The Cool Whip container.
Or like the butter container with like spaghetti sauce inside.
Yes.
With
and-
hot dogs.
Yes, but remember that butter container, that ink is scratched off because it's been washed so many
Right,
times.
right,
Because
yeah.
we
'Cause you
recycle,
can't waste
reduce,
it.
and reuse.
Can't
We don't
waste.
waste.
Yeah, no, we can wait. Favorite Filipino food?
Sinigang.
Palabok. Actually,
Lechon.
Yes,
oh, nice.
yum.
I actually smell some
Correct.
lechon in
Lechon.
here.
Crispy pata.
It's like crispy pata, yes. I actually one of my all-time favorite Filipino dish is a Filipino breakfast. So garlic fried rice, langbanisa, and chicken tocino, both
yum.
with 2 fried eggs, not 1, because I love that like
Yeah.
yolk.
What do they call that? Tosilog?
Tosilog.
Tosilog.
There's like
Longanisa.
tosilog,
Tapsilog.
tapsilog, and then there's
Losilog.
losilog, and then bangsilog with bangos.
That's a lot of silogs,
All the
huh?
silogs.
Silogs. Right. Top 2 Filipino occupations. The one that we didn't become.
Nurse,
Nurse. Navy.
Navy.
businessman.
We're like,
No,
yeah.
it's a lie. I did become a businessman, just not the one my dad wanted.
We just took a whole different direction.
We're in a different
We're in a
business.
different business.
Well, thank you guys. This has been really fun, and I know we'll have to do it again. Thank you so much for watching our episode. I do want to dedicate this episode to my cousin who we lost a few days ago. I know he was really looking forward to the launch of This Is Me. So, to Kuya Teng, wherever you are, this episode is for you. And this is me, and this is us.